Hello, everybody. This is Doomsday Danny, and I am here to give you some tips for how you can survive the Holocaust. If you follow me, I will give you some tips that might just save you one day.
Good evening, everyone. This is Danny coming at you from VNBR, the Vulture's Nest Broadcast Radio, and welcome to my Doomsday Show. On this show, I'm going to explain to you what actions you can take in the event of a nuclear bomb detonation. Even if a nuclear weapon goes off in your city, you have over an 80% chance of survival if you know what to do to help improve your odds. I'm not affiliated with the military, the government, nor any other emergency response team. That simply means that I don't do this professionally. I am good at research, and I will look for factual information that I can share with all of you, but please do your own research as well. If you have a question or something you would like me to explain, please put your questions in the comments or send me an email at survivedoomsdaydisasters@gmail.com, and I will do my very best to respond to everyone. In each of these episodes, I'm going to include affiliate links to products and resources that may be good for your family to start collecting. If you would like any of these products or services, please use my link below. The commissions I make from my affiliate programs allows me to bring this vital information out to everyone at no cost. If you've not done it yet, please like and subscribe to my channel, and please also share it with your family and loved ones. One of these episodes may contain the one piece of information your loved one will need to know that might save their life when the bombs do fall from the sky. I hope together we can save many lives. Just because it's really bad, it does not mean it's the end of the world or even the end of our species. Remember, folks, knowledge is power, and the more you know, the more powerful you become. The more information you can accumulate, the better prepared you will be to react to any situation you might find yourself in when a nuclear attack occurs. So, if you haven't been watching, this is the fourth video in this series, and I've been going through the U.S. Armed Forces Nuclear, Biological, and Chemical Survival Manual by Dick Couch. We use this book in my grad school courses. A link to purchase a copy for yourself is also in the description below. So far, we've covered the importance of setting an emergency plan for your family. That was in video number 1. In video number 2, we talked about what kind of supplies you could start thinking about getting together so that you can prepare. Video 3 discussed what exactly will happen if a nuclear bomb were to fall on a major city. Basically, I reviewed a simulation video that was prepared by Neil Halloran. Very, very awesome video. I suggest you check it out. It's in the link on video 3, I believe, maybe even video 2 as well. But he does a very good simulation of what would happen in a nuclear disaster. Basically, what I took away from it is that even in the case of a relatively severe nuclear disaster, we walk away with about an 80%, a little over an 80% survival rate, chance of survival. So when you look at those odds, I think I'd rather be prepared because it's unlikely I'm going to get vaporized at the beginning. So hence this program. So how are you going to respond when you hear a nuclear strike is about to occur? What if you had no warning and you just see a brilliant flash of light? What do you do in those first moments? Well, what you do might actually determine if you're a survivor or a casualty. Stay tuned, and I will explain some of the things you will need to know to help increase your odds of survival. Please keep in mind, this is not comprehensive. I'm going to be giving you tips as I find them. I can't cover all the information in any single video, so I really suggest watching this series. The further we go into it, the more in-depth I will start covering these topics, but the first several videos are simply going to be an overview. So I'm trying to give everyone a broad overview of what kinds of things to expect. First, when you first thing to consider is, where are you going to be when a strike occurs? That's very, very important to consider. You might be at home, you might be at work, you could be out shopping, maybe you're picking your kids up from daycare or dropping them off at school. You could be in a dozen other places that you just visit throughout the day in your normal life, you know. So how do you prepare for something like that? It's easy to prepare if you think that you're going to be at home, like prepping your home, okay. But we may not be lucky enough to have a choice on where we are when disaster happens. We have to be mentally prepared, whether we're with our supplies or not, because the actions you take right there in the beginning might dictate the rest of the course of everything for you. So knowing what to do and how to respond is going to be the best preparation you can have. Remember, knowledge is power. So, since you know that you're not necessarily going to be at home where all your supplies are, what can you do? When you hear an attack is imminent, what are you going to do? Well, if you can get home from where you're located before the estimated impact time, if we have a warning, then you should do that. However, keep in mind, traffic's going to be much heavier than normal as people start to panic and hit the roads. The last place you want to be in the event of a nuclear detonation is in your car. So for most people, it is going to be much more practical to find a safe place to shelter for the initial blast rather than trying to return home. So what about your loved ones? What about your spouse? What about your parents? What about your children? Those are very, very important. But the last thing you want to do is try to take just a few minutes to try to get to people when it's going to leave you exposed and out in the open during the blast. You can't risk that, because if you don't make it through the initial blast, you're not going to be able to help them in the days following the blast. So it's very important that you survive the blast. Once you survive the blast, then you can start thinking about it. If your family's prepared, if they all know what to do, you're going to have to rest assured that they're going to take actions of their own. If you've planned it, if you talked about it, you're prepared. That's really the best you can do. When it happens, you have to think about keeping yourself safe, because like I said, you're not going to help anyone else if you don't survive. And if they all survive and you don't, think of how devastating that's going to be to your family. So you want to do everything you can to increase your chance of survival, and keep in mind, they should all be prepared to be doing the same. So where should you choose to go if you're out and about? The biggest hazards at first are going to come from the immediate, like, immense heat that's coming off of the bomb. Also, initially, it's going to vaporize everything within 8 or 9 football fields from ground zero. All that debris is going to be falling from the air. So that is your first hazards, are going to be that fireball and the debris. So what you want to do is you want to get as far below ground as you can. If you can't go underground, then go into some tall, structurally sound, preferably brick or concrete building. You want to go to the center of the building, and then you want to get as low down as you possibly can. So underground parking areas are great. Subways are excellent places to go. Anywhere that you can get underground. What that is doing is that's protecting you from the fireball. Okay? You want to survive that fireball that is an immediate aftershock of the detonation. So getting low is good. Now, a lot of people are going to think that they should just jump in their car and round up their children and family members. That the hardest thing that you're going to be able to do, that you're going to have to do, not be able to do, but what you're going to need to do, is to not be able to get to them in time. Basically, if you spend all the time you have to try to get to them, even if you get to them, you're not going to have time to get them somewhere safe. The best thing for everyone to do is to take the time they have and get themselves somewhere safe. So this is where preparing everyone ahead of time is going to be vital. And children and adults both can be very resourceful. So if they know what to do, they'll be way better prepared to act. While everyone else around them is panicking and losing their minds, maybe you and your family are the ones that are focused and clear and know what to do because you've talked about it. You have a plan. They don't need to panic. So basically, talk to your kids, talk to the school, find out what the school's emergency procedures are, and then talk to your kids about it. Maybe you might have to work with your school or your teachers to make sure they know how to take care of the kids. Like, they may not even know. We don't get this training anymore, guys. So, several people my age, Gen X, well, yeah, we might have a vague idea of what to do because we had to learn all about this during the Cold War growing up as school children. But nowadays they don't cover that. The teachers are usually a generation younger than me, so they probably haven't learned it either. I don't know that they do drills like this in school anymore, so you may have to, have a couple conversations with your kids' teachers. Or even like your boss and things like that. So basically, remind your children that many of the other kids in the school are not going to know what to do and they're going to be panicking. Remind your children that they need to follow the instructions that you've taught them and that they should not listen to advice from the other students who are probably going to be really freaking out if they're not prepared. They need to know to get away from the windows. They need to know to go towards the interior of the building, and they need to know to go to the lowest level that they can possibly get to. That's how they will stay the safest. And remember, most schools were also fallout shelters during the Cold War. It might just be the very safest place that your kids can be in this situation, even though it's terrifying that they may be away from you when this occurs. Planning can help you and your loved ones to make sure that they're poised to make life-saving responses instead of simply giving into panic and emotional reactions that could lead to disaster. Remember, if you don't survive the initial blast, you won't be able to do anything to help your family. So, here's where it gets a little tricky. If you survive the initial blast, you now have about 10 to 15 minutes before the radioactive fallout starts falling. This radioactive dust is extremely dangerous. If it gets on you, it can cause radiation sickness or even death. It can increase your long-term chances of developing cancer and other diseases like that, and you need to limit your exposure to that fallout. A significant number of deaths will result from exposure to fallout and not following proper procedures following exposure. So if you can get home within 10 minutes and you don't have to drive, then go for it. Go straight home, instruct your family, decide in advance if you're going to shelter at home, work, or your schools. Make sure everyone knows what they will be doing in advance so they're mentally prepared to take action. Most of the time you will want to stay where you are for the next 72 hours. That's going to be the hard one. As soon as the bombs exploded, it's still not safe outside for 3 days, 3 whole days, which means you should prepare your kids to stay in their school for 3 days. The last thing you want them to do is to run out of that building as soon as that bomb explodes and it's clear. I know that sounds difficult or impossible. It's really not that bad. The reason you want to wait so long is because that's about the time it takes for the nuclear fallout to safely settle. Radiation levels will drop drastically in the first 3 days. Now keep in mind that dust is still radioactive. It has just settled. Now, so you need to be very careful moving around outside. If you need to do any planting or farming, keep in mind plants absorb radiation, so you need to clear off that first 2 to 4 inches of topsoil, and you can't eat any of the plants that are already planted. So what do you do if you were exposed to fallout, or if you're not near any buildings when the attack happens? Well, basically same advice goes. You want to get as low down as possible. Do not stay in your vehicle. This is why you don't want to jump in your car and rush off as soon as you hear there's going to be a nuclear strike. You don't want to get caught in your vehicle. It won't protect you from radiation at all. Instead, you want to get out of your vehicle, if you're in a vehicle, and you want to get in a ditch or get down behind some solid barrier that will protect you from the blast. So once you see the flash of light, you want to get something between you and that flash of light, and you may only have a few seconds to respond. You want to dive into a ditch, you want to get underground, anything you can. Culverts like in the ground for drainage are really good. So are like probably deep under the structure of a bridge, you know, something like that. You want to get where you will be somewhat protected and as low down as you can get. Keep in mind, exposed clothing and even skin can catch fire, depending on how close you are to a blast. So you want to limit your chances of any exposure as much as possible. Now, here's where this gets a little different. As soon as the blast wave passes, you need to get to shelter immediately. Where I told you if you're there, you should stay. Well, this is the exception. If you're caught in the open, you can't stay there because you will get nailed by that fallout. So you see a blast, you get low, get in the ditch, wait for the blast wave to pass, then you get up and get to shelter instantly. I don't care where you shelter, you just need to shelter. Remember, 10 to 15 minutes before fallout starts. When you get to the shelter, if you were outside, you have to decontaminate. This is where it's hard. You're probably going to be freaked out. So you need to take this very slowly and methodically. Keep in mind what you're protecting yourself against now is dust. And dust sticks to everything. So you need to slowly and carefully remove your clothing, your shoes, and anything else that you have on you. You want to place the items in a plastic bag and then put them outside or as far away from you in the house as you possibly can. These items could be radioactive. Get in the shower. Now you want to lose lots and lots and lots of water. Soap's fine, but don't use any lotion or conditioner because that can actually get particles to stick to you. Lots and lots and lots of water. Wash as many times as possible. Every single speck of dust could be radioactive. You are trying to wash as much of it off of you as humanly possible. Be thorough. Do not just frantically rush through this. This is a decontamination shower. It's much different than a normal shower. You need to spend 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes in there underwater, making sure that you're methodically rinsing absolutely everything. So the key here is slow and methodical. There's no reason to panic. You've survived. Now you need to focus on the methodical steps you will take to stay alive. As each family member returns home, make sure you decontaminate everyone. Make sure everyone gets a really thorough decontamination shower. Even if you think you don't need it, that you were sheltered for the whole 3 days and probably no fallout, just be thorough. Just do it. If you can do it, just do it. So the next part is applicable if you're at home when an attack occurs, or if you've just arrived home and you've finished decontaminating yourself. What you need to do now is set up your safe area. You should have already designated an area in your home in advance, but if you haven't, look for something in the center of your house as low down as you can get it. If you have a basement, that's great. You should have already stockpiled your safe area with supplies that you've collected that you're going to need. Check out my second video in this series to see what sort of supplies you will need if you haven't done it yet. But the one thing that's going to be important for this stage is that you have a thick, at least 4 millimeter plastic sheeting, and you're going to want some gaffer's tape. If you don't have these in advance, you can make do with trash bags and duct tape, because sometimes we may not have the luxury of perfectionism. So get together what you can afford to in advance, and keep in mind the alternatives you may already have available in your home. You'll want to cover every window and door with the plastic, and then you want to seal all the edges with the gaffer's tape. Now, if you're not familiar with gaffer's tape, it's just like duct tape, except it has a stronger adhesive, so it's going to be better for this sort of use. You should turn off your air conditioning or your heat pump or your furnace. Anything that would draw in radioactive dust from the outside, you want to block that off. So if you have an air vent that's blowing into your safe area, you're going to want to also tape that off so that no dust gets down into you. You should have enough food and water for everyone in your house that will last at least 3 days. So after the 72 hours, it's going to be relatively safe for you to come out and start trying to reunite with the rest of your family members that didn't make it home at the beginning. Make sure you have a battery operated radio so that you can then decide if it's going to be best to continue to stay at home or to see if you need to evacuate. After 72 hours, the emergency responders should have made an initial assessment of the damage and be able to direct you from there. So this is a very broad overview. I understand that. In future episodes, we're going to be breaking things down into much more detail. But for now, I want to get you all started with just some basics. Please send any questions or comments to me at survivedoomsdaydisasters@gmail.com, or just leave a comment down below. I do realize that I have not covered every scenario that's possible here, and I do realize that some of the scenarios that I focused on, like children, may not be applicable to everyone, but the general basics are applicable to anyone. So the affiliate product that I have selected for today is called The Survival Sanctuary. It's a book by Mark Johnson, and I selected this book because it walks you through 25 different DIY projects that can help you and your family survive off-grid. Now, I don't really have the skills or the funds to really get into living off the grid right now, but I plan to get this book and keep it down in my safe area because I may not have access to the internet following a disaster, and I may need this vital information. Even if the projects are above my skill level, I may find other folks that can help me complete some of these projects. I just know that I will feel better having this guide accessible for me and my family. If you feel the same way, you can click the link down below in the description or go to my website where all my other affiliate links are located. I'm also going to attach the link for the Survival Medicine Handbook that I mentioned in my last video because I think it might be just as important to have on hand in the event of an emergency. If you feel these resources will help you and your family, then please visit my website or just click the link in the description below. You can also find links to the book I'm using in this video. Have a wonderful day, and if you have not done it yet, please like and subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends and loved ones. We might just save a life together. This is Doomsday Danny from VNBR signing off for tonight. Don't forget to come on back because we will be broadcasting until the Holocaust signs us off for good. Rest well, everyone. Danny, over and out.